Greetings, my good friends, and welcome back to the Sunshine State Rails. Oh, it's that time of year again. School has begun, and who am I to say that it's not demanding? So video uploads will likely be delayed from here on out, and a lot of the time y'all will probably see videos like I'm making here. A video that is pretty long, but with a lot of effort put into it. This is actually going to be a combination video of 3 Railfan outings, stretched about over a 3-week period. This first outing being our last outing for the summer before school began again. This being the night of August 28th, headed into the early morning of August 29th. Then we will include a juice train from Saturday, September 5th, a Central Florida outing from September 7th, and finally, a little surprise caught on September the 12th. So, without further ado, let's get into this long line of trains. First one to come on this outing was QO46, our nightly stack train out of Uceda Yard in Tampa, bound for Jacksonville. Gevos and containers. What can I say? Same old, same good old. How could we end off the summer without a trip to Dade City and a meetup with Chase and Larry? And with the addition of Nicholas this time. We got there just after sunset. And here's another little thing that I'd like to clear up for you guys. For you guys watching my channel, I appreciate all the support, but here's something for you guys to remember. I'm a kid. I may narrate videos and all, but overall, I'm just a kid. So most of the time, there really isn't a goal to these outings besides catching trains and hanging out with friends. Just being kids is the best way I can put it. So sometimes there aren't a lot of educational pieces in my videos. That's just because trains keep us sane, and that's what we go out to catch, whether there's an educational background or not. And while yes, I will throw fun facts and educational pieces into my videos here and there, most of the time they're from prior knowledge or they're found afterwards. Because the majority of the time, especially with school starting now, going out for trains is all hobby based. So we do it just for fun. That's who we are.
And apparently, since Gevo jokes are funny on my channel, here's another one. 45 with probably nothing but Gevos, because when does he have anything but Gevos, right?
Well, look who finally decided to show up. It's Q442 northbound mixed freight out of Tampa every night, bound for Waycross, Georgia. This is the train that we actually gave up on earlier. We went to Plant City to catch this guy, but he took his sweet time to build his train in Yeoman, so we beat it up here. And finally, they rounded the corner with their streak of orange, or white I should say these days, and a little bit of mixed freight on the back. gave it another good hour, and then one more decided to show up. Q604, another northbound mixed freight, this one out of Winston Yard at Lakeland, headed to Waycross as well. This one with a very short train, and as far as I know, only that lead Gevo pulling. Those other two locomotives, I believe, were dead in tow, headed to Waycross for servicing or routing elsewhere. There goes the whole train with no edits. Yet another hour. Then we get Q178. One solid train of containers highballing out of the Winter Haven Intermodal Logistics Center bound for Jacksonville not too long after 046, headed to the exact same destination. At this point, we said goodbye to our friends Chase, Larry, and Nick. They all had to get going back toward home. But we would be out for quite a bit longer because we were waiting on more trains and the possible SpaceX launch, which was to happen at about 2:14 a.m., which was estimated at the time. From where we were positioned at the depot, we could just barely see the signal for the south end of Dade City siding about a quarter mile to our south. And the signal was showing a clear, so we knew something else was on the way southward. But that signal sat like that for a solid hour. Until finally, at 1 o'clock a.m. on the dot, Q453 rounded the curve and sped down the hill. Yes, this is Q453. These guys were running roughly 5.5 hours late. Well, a little more than that if it's 1 o'clock a.m. at Dade City. But here they are. And for you Gevo lovers, here's 3 more of them.
Southbound, motor CSX 582 as a approach medium signification. Lakeland Junction main track.
And the night journeys on, a trek back down to the Lakeland side, where Q455, a nightly mixed freight from Waycross, Georgia to Taft, Orlando, was rounding the corner just after 2:15 a.m. This is a new one for me. I haven't seen 455 in this territory ever since they switched it back to this routing. By this point, the space shuttle launch had been delayed until about 2:30 a.m., so the wait continued for that as well.
Life by design, they say. Just after 3 a.m. at the end of the dead-end street at Winston. 0713 sitting right here with 2 UP engines.
Yes, one of the main surprises for tonight, 0713. Here's a nightly local that makes a round trip from Winston to Taft, Orlando and back. Tonight, CSX was using 2 Union Pacific GEVO locomotives as the power, and by the time we had got down to Winston, they had returned, and the dispatcher had lined them to back into the yard, hence the restricting signal on the South Y mast here. Yes, it is after 2:30 a.m. The shuttle launch was once again delayed, now to roughly 3:20 a.m., so we would continue to wait. And the wait would drag on for the rocket launch until it was finally time at 3:24 a.m., only for something to happen that neither I nor my dad have seen in our lifetimes. The rocket was about to launch when the engine started and then aborted, which meant the rocket wasn't going anywhere for a number of days afterward. So much for that. But on the bright side, we did have one final train to catch out here that we knew of. We knew Q441, southbound mixed freight bound for Tampa, was somewhere on the S line between Wildwood and Vitus, and by the time we got to Plant City, our timing couldn't have been any better because we crossed the tracks to a high green at the interlocking. So we pulled in and waited 20 minutes, then here he was. 2 last GEVOs to end off this summer. I'm sure you guys are screaming over that.
And there we go, folks. Last train of my summer. One hell of a night out here. Good last train. Overall, unforgettable summer. Thanks for joining me on this crazy night of ours. And I'll see you next time, at least fairly soon, on the Sunshine State Rails.
And here we are again, just over a week later, on September the 5th. We were in the area, so we stopped in at Ruskin, Florida because the juice train was nearing us. The fairly norm today, 2 GEs pulling a string of juice cars with no mixed freight on today. Quite interesting if I had to say.
Yeah, doesn't really help that the hand you want to use to wave at the crew has a sprained wrist. Ow. Yeah.
And now, here we are just a couple of days later, on September 7th. We would have this Monday off of public school for Labor Day, so we took advantage and went out to Railfan. Plant City was the first spot because two locals were in the vicinity. Number one, obviously, the one you're looking at right now, 0709, the Plant City area switcher that switches out local customers and industries, delivering their final products on the last mileage of their trip. Interesting to note that within recent weeks, this train has undertaken some delivery duties of the Anuvia plant at Central Farmers. Also interesting to note that you can't see, if I turn the camera 180 degrees, you'd see a headlight right down the line. That was our other local, 0708, another Plant City to Winston area local. He had just dropped off his train further to the west and was ready to head back to Winston, and they would wait until 0709 crossed the diamond to get clearance back there. So not 2 minutes after 709 cleared, here comes 708. After 708 cleared, yet another movement was lined across the diamond. It was 709 again. He wouldn't be switching any other industries north of Plant City today, so shoving across the diamond on the track closest to us, he would be using the crossovers just north of here to cross over to track 1 and head back south to Tampa using the S-line. And now that 708 was out of the way, the dispatcher could line him all the way home. So here he came once again. PO 91 got a clear on that South Winston Y. It's what we heard on the radio as we made our way east toward Lakeland. We pulled into a dead-end road with some old code lines off to the right, as we can still stand in the speedy wake of an Amtrak train. And once again, about an hour and a half later,
We're clear, nothing to Winston 1.
what you've just witnessed in the last minute or so is a common occurrence here in Central Florida. Amtrak number 91's inward and outward trips from Tampa, headed eventually to Miami. We moved upward to Lakeland Junction because we heard of another local headed our way, headed to Winston after working Auburndale and other customers near Davenport, this one being 0738. And as much as we had hoped that he might have a train with him, he was just two engines. Two nice engines, but just two engines. This is South Lakeland at the old abandoned Amtrak station, where the two Winston tracks begin. The one on the left that 738 is taking grants a train access to the two Winston Ys. The track on the right is the Winston Pass. Two, not surprisingly, bypass Winston Yard completely. Quite some time passes between then and our next train, a few hours I'd say, before Q453 lit up the radio coming south, clearing the defect detector at Kathleen. Thank goodness that this 453 wasn't as late as the other one we caught. You know, the 1 o'clock a.m. at Dade City one? Yeah, we won't talk about that one. This one, however, was making it to Lakeland at just after 3:45 p.m., with a way better lash-up in my opinion. Two old 300 series AC4400 CWs, both still proudly wearing, possibly begrudgingly, but still proudly wearing, the Yellow-Nose 2 1990s paint style. These two old soldiers were all CSX needed to haul this 14,500 foot long train down from Waycross, eventually to Miami.
Sounds good to me. I appreciate it.
The new Bonnet Springs Park is still under construction off to the right. Coming up here soon, I'll do a dedicated video to this place again, because the construction is still going and is set to open in spring of next year. From that point on, there really wouldn't be much else in Central Florida for the rest of the day, so we began to make our way south toward home. But the radio lit up one more time with a surprise train. We could hear CSX train K339 releasing his authority up to south end of Valrico, which means that he has just passed that point, and after making it over to Yeoman Yard, he will turn south and come down the Palmetto subdivision to reach Mosaic's East Tampa Phosphate Processing Facility. This train is coming fresh out of the Agrock Four Corners mine with newly mined wet rock phosphate headed to the processing plant for processing. So we pulled in at a secret spot of mine, if you will, to catch K339 with two more of those beloved Gevos. So lying underneath those stormy skies, this would end our outing for September 7th, 2020. But there's one more train that I'm going to throw onto this video. This one came to us on September 12th. After handling some personal business all throughout the day in the area, we had just finished up our duties when we heard a distant horn. It was 0750 coming back north, thundering northbound past Port Manatee. And since our duties were done, and for whatever reason I had brought my camera with me that day, we decided to go after it and get one still shot of it here at the Little Manatee River. And with Tropical Storm Sally out in the Gulf of Mexico, it stirred up the skies just enough to give us a nice backdrop for this train coming back north. And a nice surprise, it was one engine coming back north with 35 empty rockhoppers. Notice a few things too about this old swing bridge. The train speeds across it have increased, and there is barely any noise as trains cross it either. The noise that you would hear beforehand when trains cross this river was the wheels passing over the joints which would join the rails together when the bridge was lined and locked. But the train speeds increasing and the lack of noise is all account the bridge updates here. New rails, new electronics, and soon to be remote control capability. And on to our next outing. I'm just kidding. That's all I got for you guys right now. I appreciate y'all watching what you could, or didn't because you probably have better things to do than watch videos like these. But either way, I appreciate what you did watch, because like I said earlier, these videos I film are just for my own enjoyment, and it's what keeps me from going insane. And just note that this is probably how I'm going to be editing videos from here on for at least a little while. It seems to be the easiest thing to do to cope with my schedule and all. But again, I thank y'all for watching and supporting this channel, and I'll see you next time, at some point, on the Sunshine State Rails. And after all that crap, at 7:13 p.m. I still got ants in my pants biting me.